Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's press briefing on the coronavirus. I'm Donna Bush. Welcome to our viewers on CIG television, as well as those on our social media platforms, as well as listeners on Radio Cayman. We'll go live now to a prayer from the Reverend Godfrey Magoo.
Let us pray. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened for you. Holy and Almighty God, who just turned back the angel of the plague of death from the dwelling of thy people, we beseech thee to hear our cry for those who are suffering and dying under the visitation of disease and virus. In thy mercy, O God, bless and enhance the efforts and research being used to stop the spread of this pandemic. Strengthen those who labor to heal and comfort the afflicted. Support us when we are scared and afraid. Restore us to the joy of salvation and faith in thee. Through Christ, who suffered, bled, and died, yea, that we might have hope and a future. In his name we pray. Amen.
And thank you, Reverend Magoo. We now welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, Premier the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, and the Honourable Minister for Health, the Honourable Dwayne Seymour. We'd also like to welcome in the room with us Dr. John Lee, Chief Medical Officer, as well as Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne. Also joining
Good afternoon. I have no further results from yesterday to report to you, which means that the total number of people we have tested is 580, 54 positive results for COVID-19, 526 negative, 6 people fully recovered, and 1 death. We have, as yesterday, 16 symptomatic, 6 have clinically recovered, 20 asymptomatic, and we have 1 person in Cayman Brac who doesn't have any symptoms as well. Of the 5 people that are admitted, they are either stable or doing well. At the Health Services Authority, I previously mentioned somebody was being ventilated. There's somebody else that is stable, and the third patient is a lot better. The two patients at Health City who are there for other reasons apart from COVID but happen to be COVID positive are also stable. We mentioned yesterday about the isolation area in Georgetown around an apartment complex. I'm just to give you a little bit of update. We don't have any results, as I've mentioned, on this apartment complex, but there are 26 units there with separate kitchens. Over 40 samples have been taken for testing. Everybody is well at the complex as of this time. The apartments are single or small family occupancy. Some wider contacts are also being traced from, from that apartment unit. I thought it might be helpful just to explain that PAHO and the World Health Organization has different categories for how COVID-19 is progressing in every country. And at the moment, we have been declared to have clusters of cases. The first two categories are no cases and sporadic cases. So we're at the third category of clusters of cases. And that's where we hope to stay. That's why we're putting all this intense effort into the suppression of COVID-19 so that we stay at clusters of cases and don't move to sustained community transmission. Almost every country in the world, well, certainly all of the European countries that we all know about, and the United States and other American countries all have sustained community transmission. We're putting so much effort into trying to not get into that category, as that's where the numbers of people getting sick, the numbers of people dying start to rise. So that's our current position. One last thing before I finish is to mention I really am impressed the number of people that I see out exercising. I'm mentioning to His Excellency the Governor and Honourable Premier today. I would hazard a guess it's maybe 4 times as normal than I normally see, because as people around in my area will know, I go out mornings and evenings. And so well done, everyone. I'm glad to see that exercise happening, because that will stand you in good stead, not only for now, but also for non-communicable diseases. And if you could stop smoking at the same time, that would be great. On the point of exercise, though, please, there's been a bit of information about the fact that if you are running and, breathing hard, and also if you're cycling, breathing hard, doing a lot of work, you may actually, you will need to increase your safe distances. So instead of that 6 foot of social distancing for a runner in the straight line path that they're going in, you'd want to consider 15 feet from that runner, and similarly a cyclist up to 60 feet in that path to stay out of that zone if you're in their wake. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, Dr. Lee. We don't seem to have any questions from the media coming forth. Actually, Reshma from the Compass is ready to ask you a question. Reshma, go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Sorry, I was slow on the draw there. Just to go back to what you indicated that we have no results. Can you say how much tests are pending and why we don't have any results available today?
Results, we've kept promising the lab that they can have days off, and every single day that we've promised them, they have not had it. Today has been a day that the senior lab person is at work, but had been promised a day off. There probably will be results this afternoon. It's just a matter of giving people a bit of a break. So we're trying to reduce the intensity a little bit. So we have around 40 results coming out of the apartment complex in Georgetown. I'm not sure how many others, but most days we've had, teens, early 20s. It's that sort of number. That's what we're expecting. I haven't got an absolute figure for you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Just to go back to the Georgetown apartment complex, you said 40 results are pending. Is it that just these 40 individuals have been isolated, or do you have a figure as to how many people within that complex have been contained in isolation?
I am hazarding a guess. Again, I don't have the absolute figure for the number of contained, but I would imagine that it is 40-something plus, because we know there are 26 apartments. I mentioned that some are single occupancy, the others are either 2 or 3 people, so 40 would be about the number. I think basically they've swabbed most everybody that was there, but each apartment complex was assessed, had their own risk assessment. So if, for example, if somebody said, no, I've had absolutely no contact with anybody, then it is arguable they might not have been swabbed. But I suspect they all have been swabbed there.
Okay,
I will
thank
be
you.
able to come back and give you that information.
Sorry?
I'll be able to come back and give you that information.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Before I
That's the problem. You can't. It's not fair to make that statement if people don't have enough access. I mean, I know that there are a lot of seamstresses out there working hard to ramp up their activity, and that is the thing that is holding us back. It is very possible. I know in some countries they're doing it, or I'm not sure if it's actually maybe even in Cayman that shops are requiring people to wear masks. It could be that going into that sort of environment, we would say you'd need to do that, but we're just waiting a few more days to have the feeling that people have enough access.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Okay, Dr. Lee, I have a question for you from the public. The question reads that they understand there are a few people on island who are required under doctor's orders to use a pool or to use some form of water to exercise because of the seriousness of their health-related issues, and they're suffering because they're not able to do that. What can persons like that find themselves in that position do?
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to that. As many people know, I used to be a pain doctor. I've had a lot of people who that was a really useful mechanism for managing their symptoms. And it's a shame, but nevertheless, it is the case that we need, in order for us to keep hold of this situation that we have, we really can't allow that sort of activity at the moment. However, there are therapists on island who are still able to work. And might I suggest they either approach their primary care practitioner, or if they have direct links with some sort of hands-on therapist, they might contact them. Therapists and doctors obviously can and have applied for exemption to curfew time at gov.ky and are able to do so in order to provide therapy. And they may well be able to find some ease through that mechanism. And a lot of the consultations, certainly with the GP, for example, can be done over the phone, so it won't actually involve any travel. And it is possible that a therapist might also be able to talk through some things that some people could do at home.
Okay.
There's also, I think, a lot of self-help out there, and that might be something to avail.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Okay, if no other questions for Dr. Lee, we'll now call on Commissioner Derek Byrne for his update.
Good afternoon. Just a brief overview of the bank holiday stats. Over the bank holiday weekend, a total of 84 persons were warned for prosecution. This includes 50 pedestrians and 34 persons driving vehicles. It was a mix of breaches of hard and soft curfew. Easter Sunday, the 12th of April, during a period of full lockdown, 50 persons were detected in breach of hard curfew. This is the highest number of breaches on any single day for persons being warned for prosecutions since the COVID-19 measures were introduced on the 23rd of March 2020. So some concern there, hard curfew, 50 detected breaches in one day. Looking overnight, last night at a report, no significant issues of a policing nature to report during hard curfew overnight. The crime situation remains stable. The hard curfew continues to operate well across the islands, despite the very high numbers of breaches reported for Easter Sunday. Little Cayman, no issues overnight. Cayman Brac, 16 vehicles stopped by police. No breaches of curfew detected. All were essential services personnel. Grand Cayman, last night, 141 vehicles stopped by police. 9 breaches of curfew were detected. This included 5 drivers of vehicles, 2 pedestrians, and 2 persons exercising in breach of hard curfew. Just like to take a moment to refer to 2 incidents that occurred yesterday evening during soft curfew, which resulted in 2 arrests. At 4:36 p.m. on Pennsylvania Avenue, police signalled the driver of a high-powered motorcycle to stop. The driver sped from the scene and accelerated to a speed of near 100 miles per hour and hit himself and the motorcycle off the main road. The police helicopter assisted and tracked the motorcycle, guiding ground units to the scene. The driver was arrested and taken to our custody detention centre for processing. The motorcycle was not stolen. The driver will be charged with a breach of soft curfew and multiple road traffic breaches. In a second incident at 5:10 p.m. yesterday evening on Godfrey Nixon Way, one of our special constables on patrol in full police uniform came across a collision where a van with 2 occupants had crashed into 2 parked vehicles. The special constable was dealing with the incident at the scene when the driver of the van drove deliberately at the special constable on 2 occasions, narrowly missing him and causing extensive damage to the police vehicle, which is now a write-off. The van then deliberately and maliciously crashed into a mini-mart, causing structural damage. Additional police units responded and the driver and his passenger were arrested and conveyed to the custody detention centre. The driver was breath tested and found to be well in excess of the legal limit. The driver is currently detained at our custody detention centre and will be charged with a breach of soft curfew, multiple road traffic breaches, reckless endangerment in his attempts to injure the officer, and malicious or criminal damage to the police vehicle. The special constable received minor injuries. He's well and he remained on duty. Looking at this morning, since 6 a.m, 12 breaches of soft curfew have been detected by police. 11 persons were issued with tickets and 1 person was warned for prosecution. The breaches involved 10 persons driving vehicles, 1 pedestrian, all in breach of soft curfew, and 1 person walking along the beach in breach of hard curfew. That person has been warned for prosecution. The roads are busy with traffic today. Supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations and banks are operating well, using the alphabet surnames L to Z, with operations being well managed, well controlled, and social distancing protocols being followed. Our helicopter and marine units continue to be deployed on extended tours, monitoring ground and marine activity. A reminder that we'll return to hard curfew this evening at 7 p.m, which runs to 5 a.m. in the morning. If you are not an exempted person, as essential services personnel, you cannot be out and about from your home or away from your home between these hours. Please stay at home. A further reminder that the beach access remains in full lockdown, a full curfew across the beaches, across the Cayman Islands, and that remains in place until at least 5 a.m. this coming Friday, the 17th of April. Just one little announcement to make in terms of cyber scam that appears to be going around, and not just in the Cayman Islands. Persons are receiving unsolicited mails seeking donations, appealing to sense of your, essentially appealing to your sense of generosity, looking for donations for COVID-19. We're asking, and the advice is to ignore these unsolicited mails. You know the trusted sources if you wish to make donations. They're generally regarded as cyber scams. It's just to be alert for persons who may be receiving them. Nothing further to report from the police. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Byrne, we do have a few questions for you from members of the press, beginning with Ralph Lewis from the Caymanian Times.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. During my approved travels on the road, I'm seeing shorter lines at the supermarket.
Well managed and well controlled. I think early in the morning there is a bit of a rush, and during the day it appears to dissipate, particularly after 3 or 4 in the afternoon. From what I can see, they're well stocked, all the supermarkets, everything's in place, and it's all running quite well.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is Reshma from The Compass.
Thank you, Donna. Commissioner, thank you for your report. I'm just curious, given that the beaches are closed now, are you concerned with the number of people that you're seeing exercising in concentrated numbers in small areas? For example, yesterday there were quite a few exercising individuals in South Sound along the boardwalk and at various points.
No concern there, Reshma. The idea is no more than 2 persons. Social distancing protocols must be followed. And I think, as Dr. Lee has said, the exercise is the right thing to be doing, not on the beaches. No access to public beaches, but exercising out so far as you can within your communities during soft curfew. And again, the hours 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, as I understand it, good for all.
Okay. Now, and just sticking with that same community and the growing numbers, are there any plans for you to, say, beef up patrols in those areas to ensure public safety when there are road users as well?
We are out. We have police mobile and static patrols on a 24-hour basis. And I said we have our helicopter up in the sky guiding us after any breach is detected. We receive reports from the public almost by the hour or more inside to our command centre and through the 911 centre, and we guide our units then to deal with any breaches that are reported.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we go next to Wendy from CNS.
Thanks, Don. I just have 2 questions for the Commissioner. The first one is, do we have a tally of the number of people that the police have warned for prosecution that are waiting, so we have a list of those people that are waiting for prosecution, if you like? Because it seems as though we've only had 1 case go through the courts, and I think 2 other cases that I've seen on the summary court documents have shown people committing other crimes, but then breach of curfew has also been added. But I just wondered if we could get a tally of the amount of people that you've stopped and are now waiting to be prosecuted. I'm not saying you have to have it now, but if you could get that for us.
Well, I can give some figures now, Wendy. So the figures are 246 persons have been detected since the start. We have 138 files with the DPP at the moment, and directions or legal rulings have been received in 24 cases. Other files will be submitted.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Also, the second one is about the protocols for the police. We were just talking earlier about masks, and when I was out and about, I also noticed that the police at the supermarkets, who are very much on the front line, they're not wearing masks, and they seem to think that because we are wearing masks, that's okay, when actual fact it's the other way round in terms of safety. Do you understand what I mean? Like, the police need to wear masks to keep us safe and vice versa. So I just wondered whether you, as a commissioner, have decided on a protocol yet about whether your officers should or should not be wearing masks.
So we've issued the officers with masks from very early on, and I said gloves and hand sanitizer. My preference is that officers do wear masks, but it's not a compulsory issue at the moment, and I think we may get to that stage over the next few days. But all officers are issued with N95 masks. They do have gloves and they do have hand sanitizers.
Do they realise, though, that by not wearing them, they're putting us at risk? Because if I'm wearing a mask and the police officer isn't, I'm protecting him from me, but I'm not protected from him or her.
So I fully appreciate and understand the point you're making, Wendy, and I'll go back and reinforce this issue this evening. I'll speak to the command team.
Thank you.
Okay, if we have no further questions for the Commissioner of Police, we will go to our panel of experts and leading officials, beginning with Premier, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Donna, for that promotion to expert. I'm not sure I can claim that, but I'll start with my customary report on the world stats about the progress of the virus through the world. Total cases, 1,936,754. Total recovered cases, 465,899. In the United States, 603,364 cases, up 16,423 overnight. Total deaths are now at 25,193, up a tremendous 1,553 overnight. Spain, 172,541, up 2,442 overnight. Total deaths, 18,056. New deaths, 300. So the number of deaths are significantly reducing in Spain. Let's hope that's a trend. Italy, 162,488, up 2,972 overnight. Total deaths, 21,067, up 602 overnight. France, 143,303. New cases, 6,524. Total deaths, 15,729, up 762 overnight. Germany, which continues to be a remarkable phenomenon, 131,170 cases, up 1,098 overnight. Total deaths, 3,272, up just 78 overnight. United Kingdom, 93,873, up 5,252 overnight. Total deaths reported, 12,107, up 778 overnight. The reason I said reported is because it has now been acknowledged that deaths within the care homes or rest homes have not been reported, and that would increase the number by more than 2,000. China, 82,249, 89 cases overnight. Total deaths, 3,341, and no deaths reported overnight. Netherlands, 27,419, up 868 overnight. Total deaths, 2,945, up 122 overnight. Canada, 26,897, up 1,217 overnight. Total deaths, 898, up 118 overnight. Portugal, 17,448, up 514 overnight. Total deaths, 567, up 32 overnight. India, 10,941 reported cases, up 488 overnight. Total deaths reported, 368, up 10 overnight. Philippines, 5,223. New cases, 291. Total deaths, 335, up 20 overnight. We have to, in some of these cases, we have to take the numbers, though, with a pinch of salt because of the number of tests that are being performed. New Zealand, 1,366 cases, up 17 overnight. 9 deaths, up 4 overnight. Trinidad and Tobago, 113 cases reported, 8 deaths. Jamaica, 73 cases reported, up 4 overnight. New York State, 202,208, up 6,553 overnight. Total deaths now at 10,834, up 778 overnight. No change in our sister territories, British Overseas Territories. Anguilla, 3 cases. Bermuda, 57 cases and 5 deaths. British Virgin Islands, 3 cases. Montserrat, 11 cases. There is a change. Montserrat, up 2 overnight. Turks and Caicos, 10 cases and 1 death. I just want to address some concerns that have been brought to my attention regarding some of the things I said yesterday, particularly with respect to the government's objective or goal of eliminating the virus within this community. Apparently that has caused some concern, particularly within the business community. People worried about the length of time they think it would take before we were able to raise the restrictions and allow business to start back. Let me say this. I've also heard that it said that this has not been achieved in any other country in the world. Let me say I start from this premise. Cayman has been ahead of the curve from the very outset. Long before I think most people thought it was reasonable for us to start to impose restrictions on movement and close schools and so forth, we took those measures. We took those measures advisedly because we have been following from last year what has been occurring in other countries with respect to this dread disease. And we've tried to learn lessons from what's happened, and we're still learning lessons from what is happening in other countries. So That is why a month since we had our first diagnosed case, we are still only at 54 cases, and the only death that we have was as I said yesterday, the unfortunate Italian gentleman who came to Cayman with the disease. It is the measures that we have put in place that essentially have achieved the physical distancing, which is so critical to preventing the transmission of the disease, that has given us those results and have put us in this enviable position. Now, with respect to the objective of elimination, let me say this. This is the Cayman Islands, 65,000 people. This is not New York State, 19.5 million people. This is not the United Kingdom, 65 million people, or any of those other big countries. It is absolutely achievable to eliminate the disease here. We have the capacity to test every single person that is here and some more. So that is why we believe eliminating the disease within Cayman, with our borders remaining closed, with the only people who are allowed here being forced, or let me not use a hard word like that, being required as a condition of their re-entry here to be quarantined in a government-run facility for a minimum of 14 days and to be tested before being released. We believe it is absolutely possible to achieve a completely virus-free state in these islands. But we will only be able to do so if collectively we have the determination and the will to do so. Otherwise, all of us, for the foreseeable future, will be moving around with this sense of dread and concern in relation to every single person you meet. Does he or she have it? Can I get this close to them or not? Or walking around with masks for the next 6, 8, 9, 10 months. That's what we're trying to avoid by the very aggressive approach that we have adopted and the insistence on social distancing. We believe it is achievable. The advice we've had from Public Health England, the advice Dr. Lee continues to give us, is that if we can get to a point where there are no positive results for 14 days, we can then start to look at easing some of these restrictions on a phased basis. That's where we're trying to get to. Does this cause hardship? Does this cause financial, in some cases, disaster for businesses and great grief and concern for many people? Absolutely. Does it mean major inconvenience, a disruption of your lifestyle? Absolutely. Believe you me, none of us are immune to this. My team, and they forward them to me. I've got about a dozen today. Complaints, concerns, petitions from people who want their pools clean, whole range of things, because people need things, people want to have some semblance of what their life was like before the lockdown started. Believe you me, none of us are immune to these needs and wants. Everyone in this panel is going through the same, as Caymanians say, sufferation. My pool isn't cleaned. The AC in my bedroom is leaking. I have to sleep on the couch because we can't use the AC up there. I have one toilet that doesn't flush. I'm sure there are people with much greater challenges than that. But we have to make do, because to allow technicians into your house is to introduce the real risk that the virus comes. That's why I will sleep on the couch rather than call someone in to fix the AC. I know exactly what's wrong with it, but I can't fix it. These are, I say these things, very personal things in relation to my own circumstances, because I want people to understand that we are all having to make do and to live life at a lesser standard than we're all used to. The governor, I had forgotten when we insisted on locking down the beaches that means he can't run on the beach anymore. So he's had to go find somewhere else to run. I mean, that's a relatively minor inconvenience, but my point is that nobody is unaffected by these restrictions. We just need to bear in mind what the goal is, what it is we're trying to do as a country. We're doing these things, we're going through these privations because we want to get to the other side where we can open back up the economy so all of us can have some semblance of normalcy in our lives. And I just want to finish by thanking the frontline staff, all the frontline staff who are out there every day, in many cases every night, trying to keep order, trying to ensure that the key essential services that we all need continue to be provided. Chief among these that I wish to single out are the healthcare personnel who do an incredible job. They are treating COVID-19 patients. They are putting their lives on the line every single day and night that they go to work. They've done an incredible job, are still doing an incredible job. And those carrying out the testing as well. All the public health staff who have to go and deliver medication, who have to go and check that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of isolating. All of them, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the entire government, I thank you. And I especially want to thank the Commissioner of Police, Derek Byrne, and his incredible staff, including those that have been seconded on board from CBC and elsewhere, all of the special constables who are out there when the rest of us are sleeping or should be sleeping, in the case of the curfew breakers, for the incredible job that they continue to do day in, day out. And I also want to thank the 911 staff, who I think by and large go unheralded, the tremendous work that they do. We really only hear about the 911 if something goes wrong with the system, and then you hear 911 is down. But while it's working seamlessly, as it does most of the time, very few of us even remember them. So again, I want to give a special shout out to all of them. Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin. Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me first just add my thanks to everybody the Premier has just highlighted. Absolutely heartfelt thanks to all of those. I want today just to refer to the question of evacuation flights. A lot of work is going on behind the scenes, and we've made good progress. We will be announcing very soon where those flights are going, but there will be a flight to Miami. Canada is looking very good. There will be a flight to Nicaragua. We're working on Jamaica, which is slightly more challenging, and we'll announce that information as soon as we can. I do want to note for our Indian nationals, we have had a lot of contact from Indian nationals, but unfortunately, airports in India are closed for at least 3 weeks, so we won't be able to organise flights for Indian nationals, at least for the next 3 weeks, but obviously we will monitor this situation and keep it under review. Work as well, continuing on another air bridge using British Airways. I'm very aware that a lot of people have raised the question of pets, and we're conscious how important that is. That is being looked at, and that's all I can say today. Second point, I announced on Saturday that there was discussion about creating a national recovery fund. A lot of people have been contacting us to ask how they can donate. I think you have to hold fire for now. Those discussions continue amongst various people out there in the private sector and civil society, and I know an announcement will be made as soon as possible on that. My third point today, I know the beach closure has been very difficult for a lot of people, although I have found somewhere else to run. So and there's something you can see on YouTube, PE with Joe. So if you're looking for something to do at home, some exercise, have a look at Joe Wicks, because it's so many people in the UK are using him. Although you may not want to have your PE teacher in your front room. But anyway, that's gone viral in the UK. And then finally today, I just want to say thank you to Jay at the Cayman Islands Tourist Association for these wonderful beakers that we're all using today with a very clear message that I hope everybody can see.
Yeah, everybody's messaging. They want to know where they can buy those mugs. Okay, we're going to move now to the Minister of Health. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone in Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. This was sent to me, and I told them I would read it on air. True education does not ignore the value of scientific knowledge or literary achievements, but above information, it values power. Above power, goodness. Above intellectual achievement, character. The world does not so much need men of great intellect as it does men of noble character. It needs men in whom ability is controlled by steadfast principles. I thank you. Also want to note, someone else sent me, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who kept on trying when there seems to be no hope at all. Scripture reading today comes from Ephesians 4:18 and Ephesians 6:11 through 13. Having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God's through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart. Put on the whole armor of God that ye might be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. As long as the devil is unhappy, I'm happy. I suspected these scriptures are making his followers uncomfortable. I pray for you. I want to say that I still see some people on the road, and I just want to say to the community, let's beat this, guys. The quicker we can follow the measures put in place, the faster persons can shore fish, can swim, etc. But let's beat this. Together we can do this. Translations today on Please Stay Home as what we're trying to encourage to dampen the spread of this disease will be in Finnish and Danish. Finnish, Please Stay Home, is Ole Kilde. In Danish, it's Vær venlig at være hjem. I thank you. Shout out today's to NAU again and Councillor Harris. You guys are going through some changes, but still being effective. Keep up the good works. Hold your heads up high. Shout out to the listeners in Dubai. I heard from you. Thank you for tuning in to the Cayman Islands. I want to shout out to Big Fish Radio. Please have your children listen in to Big Fish Radio at 3 p.m. daily. It's a kiddos hour, but adults will also love it. It's Radio 95.5. This morning, when I went out and about, went to the supermarket and the gas station, I saw at least 90% of the persons wearing face coverings. This was very, very welcome this morning, and I thank you for doing that, for playing your part. I would say please wear a mask. In fact, if I was a business and before the government mandates such a thing, I would insist everyone coming in entering my business cover their nose and mouths. Let's do our part. We don't have to wait for any instructions. There are people out there that still has to shop, that are very vulnerable, and we are trying our best to keep the number of losses down. As someone said, never in my wildest dream did I imagine I'd go up to a bank teller with a mask on asking for money. I want to say that there is a lady in New Jersey who followed all the measures, never left home, but still died. She contracted COVID-19 collecting her mail. So please be aware that we need to be conscious at all times in everything that we do. This is a time in the country and around the world where we need to band together as one in unity and be willing to sacrifice for all good of humanity. We have done so much to ensure that as a country we can rebound to some sense of normalcy. We have closed our borders. We have promoted social distancing. We put additional measures in place to ensure widespread infections are minimal. We support our hospitals and doctors with whatever is needed for them to cope with this pandemic. We ordered equipment and supplies to prepare for any rise in the case of COVID-19. We inform daily by press conference. We have helped with meeting the utility companies, the banks, pension companies, health insurance companies. We provided support through social services assistance. We are constantly engaged in world politics and reach out to the leaders to ensure we are in tandem with all. We are ensuring our medical staff have the personal protection equipment needed to continue working hard for you. We ensure our country is safe during these times. There is a story about being proud of your country and willing to show courage of sacrifice. Now imagine if we had the same determination and made the type of sacrifice to the end like the national hero of Costa Rica. He was a lowly drummer boy in the Costa Rican army as a poor laborer, born August 29, 1831, and in April 1856, the American William Walker tried to conquer the Central American nation to form a private slaveholding empire. The Costa Ricans were unable to push Walker back and out of the hostel near the town center. Some of the Costa Rican soldiers advanced towards the hostel with a torch to set it on fire, but many of them tried but failed and were killed. But this gentleman, the drummer boy, on April the 12th, 1856, at 25 years old, volunteered to go towards the Walker's army, but under one condition, that in the event of his death, which was very likely, that someone would look after his mother. He advanced and was mortally wounded by enemy fire, but before expiring, he succeeded, however, in setting the hostel on fire, thus contributing to the Costa Rican victory at Rivas. That man who sacrificed his life for the good of country was Juan Santa Maria, who was called the Sea Urchin. He was recognized as a national hero of Costa Rica. Costa Rica's main airport is named after him, the Juan Santa Maria International Airport. I've been just as brave as Santa Maria, and until you're brave and courageous as him and willing to stand with this country, you ought to say to yourself, I am ashamed. Today, I would also like to update you on more of my ministry's effort to keep you all safe from the coronavirus threat. Yesterday, I highlighted the Department of Environmental Health for their contributions to this vital work. I asked you to ensure your families were aware of the correct ways to dispose of trash to help keep these frontline workers safe. Today, I would like to applaud the DEH again for maintaining all collection targets when it comes to trash collection. This challenge has been exacerbated by the need for 20 staff to self-isolate as a precautionary measure. In spite of the reduction in manpower, while DEH employees step up to protect their families and the community, the department has managed to maintain service as usual, meeting every target set for them. I thank this hard-working team for their role in keeping us safe at this time. We also welcome on board 10 new staff members. They will also help the DEH process solid waste and are crucial to ensure we maintain continuity of the operations at the department. We thank you for your service. Last week, I told you about HSA's recruitment drive to ensure we have the necessary staff to keep the Cayman Islands safe. If you're a nurse or work in housekeeping and cleaning, please contact the HSA at hs.jobs@hsa.ky for these temporary roles. Our nation needs all hands on deck to ensure we remain prepared. I ask the viewers and listeners to do their part to help keep all of their essential staff safe. Stay home to save lives. Staying home is Caymankind. I also want to note that all the persons at the Georgetown complex that Dr. Lee spoke about earlier were swabbed and were informed the need to isolate. I hope my presentation has been insightful and informational. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Minister Seymour. I do have a few questions from the public for Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne. Commissioner, one of the first questions persons are asking if you could explain the penalty for the person who was found walking on the beach with the hard curfew. And the second question pertains to if you can give any additional information on the 24 rulings that you mentioned.
Yes, so the penalty for breach of hard curfew for any person, including the person walking on the beach this morning, is a fine of 3,000 Cayman dollars and to a term of imprisonment of 1 year or to both. And the second question was 24 rulings. They're files that are sent by the processing office in the RCIPS Criminal Justice Department to the DPP. The DPP considers the facts and has directed a prosecution should take place for breach of curfew in 24 cases at this time. There are still another number of cases with the DPP awaiting direction or legal ruling.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We go now to Wendy from CNS.
Thank you, Donna. My first couple of questions are for Dr. Lee. Of the virus and never included in the figure. So perhaps for us, a more understandable figure for the public might be how many people have tested positive and have gone through their 14-day quarantine and are now clear. So they have not necessarily recovered because they never suffered in the first place, but just so we get an idea of how many people are, you know, over and done with, as it were.
Absolutely, Wendy. I'm sorry for the confusion. So when we say the ones that have fully recovered, the recovered figure that we're giving are actually, you're quite right. Some of them may have had very mild symptoms or not been unwell at all. So maybe we should possibly rephrase that and say are negative. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But that's what we meant by that they've had their second test. We're about to have a whole bunch of people that have had their second test to say that they're clear. So what it means is that if you're positive, you will automatically get 2 clearance tests at the end of the 14-day period or at the end of the period of your symptoms, whichever is longer. So we were about to get a lot more of those, but we're still relatively early on in that period. And there's also obviously a lag for the laboratories getting both of those tests managed. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I now understand. Yes. Okay. So, for example, the 4 students that tested positive and then they were waiting for more tests, they have not had their clear negative test yet then?
Well, you know what my answer is going to be to that I don't go into individual cases when you might be able to identify the people. But you're quite right that there are quite a few people who are getting first and second tests, and if they pass both of those, then they will move into the recovered bunch. Even if they may not have had symptoms, yes, they'll move into the recovered bunch.
That makes sense now. Okay, yeah, so I understand that. Thank you very much for the clarification. The other question is, just because of you saying yesterday you were unaware, can we get sort of clear clarity on, or confirmation that no one else has breached their mandatory isolation when they have tested positive and they're still in that 14-day period? Can you tell us with confidence that no one else has done that?
We had one particular family, but as I mentioned, I think it was a lack of comprehension that there was a breach. We thought didn't have it confirmed, but we went back and explained to them that these are the circumstances, and we didn't have a problem subsequently, which is why which is what I was hedging my bets with yesterday, if you follow. And I know of no others.
Right. Okay, so it was just one possible occasion, but you feel confident now that family fully understands and they're locked down.
Yeah, almost always it's been a question of comprehension, because people don't, because there's this curfew, there's a hard curfew, there's a soft curfew, there's self-isolation, there are all these different terms that people hear. They think, well, I'm complying with that. And even though public health have explained you're in a different situation, you are absolutely not allowed out. That message sometimes needs to be given a few times, as you can understand.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to put a similar question to the panel and have them, because I think Dr. Lee has explained quite a few times why we should not mandatorily quarantine people who end up testing positive from the community as opposed to people that come back. But it does seem that people just aren't, the public broadly is not getting that message or understanding it. And they feel that this is our huge weak point, that we're not quarantining positive cases. So it would be good to hear from the Premier and the Governor their position supporting the arguments that Dr. Lee gave, or if indeed they feel differently. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, because I deal with this almost every day. I was saying to His Excellency a little while ago that I get as many as 300 WhatsApp messages a day, let alone the other stuff. But this one always pops up. So what I say to people is this. We have to be reasonable and to understand that people are people. The fact that a person has a particular disease does not dehumanize the individual, regardless of what the disease is. We are still dealing with human beings. So I ask people to put themselves in this position. If you know that if you go for a test and you are tested and you test positive, that the government's response immediately is going to be to place you in a government-run, secure facility where you will have to stay for a minimum of 14 days. Would you volunteer for that test unless you were very, very sick? I'll tell you this, I wouldn't. So we've got to be very careful when we insist on such drastic measures that we don't actually make the situation worse, where we have people who are symptomatic, who are not feeling well, but who are afraid to go and get a test because they believe they will essentially be locked down. So the government is not adopting that approach on the basis of the advice we have. We insist, public health insists, the chief medical officer insists that persons have to isolate. We have in place measures, we have in place a team that does carry out surveillance and scrutiny of persons who are known positives and who are able to respond if there are complaints made. It is only if you are in breach of that obligation, because it is a legal obligation under the public health law once the chief medical officer has issued his instruction. If people are not complying with the instruction, it is only at that stage that there would be mandatory detention. Obviously, there can be exceptions to this. So in the case of persons who have returned or returning to Cayman, we make it a condition of them being permitted to return that they are prepared to submit to being placed in a government-run facility to isolate for a minimum of 14 days. So that is how we are approaching it. As I say, the great fear, and if you think about it and think it through logically, is that if government takes a more radical approach that every positive person has to be essentially detained in a government-run facility, I fear that the number of people volunteering for tests will dry up pretty quickly. Unless people are gravely ill, they're unlikely to go to the hospital in those circumstances. That's a bit long-winded, but I didn't know how to explain it more shortly.
Because I think people just don't seem, either they're not listening or what, because we've asked this question 1,000 times, but as you say, we get the same question 10 times every day. So I just thought if you said it, maybe people would get the message. Thank you.
I just want to add briefly to what the Premier said. We have discussed this a lot, and I agree 100% with what the Premier said. It is a balance, and I think we're getting the balance absolutely right. And the numbers of cases where we've had concerns, thankfully, seem to be incredibly small and low. But we also have to think about the people who have COVID-19. If a lot of them it's not serious, but for some of them it is. This is not a nice thing to have, and we have to think about them, and we have to think about not stigmatizing people. So it's a balance to get this right, but I think we're getting that balance absolutely right at the moment.
Thank you very much, Governor.
Okay, I have a question for Premier McLaughlin or His Excellency from the public. It's in relation to many other countries are doing what they call massive disinfecting of their cities and their counties and towns. Is that something that could be considered here for places where persons would go to?
Donna, thank you. Great question. Over the past couple of weeks, actually the past 3 or 4 weeks, I have had the doctors at the scientists at MRCU looking at measures that we could possibly take here in cleansing our city with the fogger and sprays and etc. We're looking at many different agents to be able to use to do this. And also, we've had a lot of representation from I would say about 5 companies who said that they had the agents that they thought we needed to be able to do this. The scientist hasn't been able to get a comfort level as yet with what kind of agent we would use. And I actually spoke to them up until yesterday, sending them some new information that I got out of one of our neighboring countries of measures they're taking there. I don't just want it to be an exercise that is an appearance of that we're cleansing the street and actually not doing it. I want it to be as effective as possible. And I think that's what the scientists at MRCU wants also. We're also working with DEH on this also, and with their lab technicians in terms of finding some solution. But it is definitely one that the government wants to consider.
Okay. Minister Seymour, you mentioned earlier about trying to bring on board some part-time nurses and other health staff, and it was mentioned maybe about a week ago that some Cuban doctors would be coming on. Do you have any idea when that's going to be happening?
Well, I'd say this. The team doesn't exactly know the amount of Cuban medical staff that we would need here. But we want to ensure that all the public and private doctors are utilized and put in the equation first before we determine how many doctors we're going to bring into this country.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go to Reshma from the Cayman Compass. Reshma, go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. My first question is to Dr. Lee. Can you say how many lab techs we have on island who are assisting with the COVID testing? I know you mentioned earlier that the main tech needs a day off. So can you apprise us of this?
I mentioned the other day the fact that there are lots of different steps, and that needs to be taken into account. So the people that can actually handle the PCR machine are, I would say, 4, 3 at the HSA and 1 at Doctors Hospital. And those are the staff that would be maintained over time. I mean, I know there may be extra expertise at the moment going into Doctors Hospital, but I understand that their permanent complement there would be 1. Then there are people who do laboratory-based work, and the numbers currently at the Health Service Authority is 3. Doctors Hospital, I think it's the same 1 person, but they may correct me on that point. And the people able to do the laboratory work are 2 at Health City. So that is, you could say, 5.5 people to do the laboratory-based work. You also need a lot of back office staff too. You need people who are going to receive the samples and unpack them, enter it into the computer, then at the other end, put the results into the computer and so on and so forth. But the core staff who we could not do without, have particular special expertise is therefore, I'm doing it quickly in my head, 9.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you say if or how far along has the Christy Thompson Hospital come in terms of preparing its lab to assist HSA with the testing?
There is probably another update today because I know that something happened today. There was another meeting today. I haven't got an update from that meeting.
Okay.
But I do want to assure you though, Reshma, that maybe I can explain. The concern is that if we weren't in a wartime footing, which it feels very much like we are, then we would be able to have people come and visit, and people who are experts in these things come and visit Cayman in order for us to say, okay, these are the things you need to do and fix this, and this all looks great and you're good to go. Clearly, we can't do that at the moment. So we're trying to move the matter forward, but I am not prepared to make the leap until I'm happy to make the leap to say that somebody can provide results on the behalf of public health, because we need to be able to trust those results. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Just moving on to the Premier now. We've gotten reports from Cayman Brac with Cayman Brac Power has started disconnecting people on the sister island. I don't know if you're aware of this, or have you had discussions with Cayman Brac Power to ensure that the same policies that are implemented here for CUC also applies on the sister island.
Are you certain of your information?
Well, I have an essential worker who says that his power was turned off and his wife and 3 kids were left in the dark.
Okay. Well, we've had no such reports, and as far as I am aware, Cayman Brac Power and Light are operating on the same basis as all of the other utilities here. But I will check.
Okay. I'll stick with you, Premier, if possible. You talked about the phased plan for government dealing with the reopening of domestic reopening. Can you tell us what that phased plan is going to look like? How is it going to roll out in terms of what's going to open first and what needs to happen for that to be able to start?
Well, it's still very much a work in progress. We're learning every day. We're looking at what's happening around the world. Spain and Italy both, I think, are proposing a phased reopening. We want to see how that goes. There are major concerns that if you reopen too early, you wind up with massive spikes in the transmission of the virus, and you have to go back into lockdown again. We've looked at and are looking at what's happening in China, and although they've been incredibly effective, they are still having cases pop up. There were 89 overnight, but we're learning as we go along as to, and we'll make decisions about which areas are least risky in terms of easing the restrictions, and do those first and see how that goes, see whether or not there is an increase in the number of, or there are new transmissions of which we are aware. But none of this is going to be possible until 2 things happen. One, that we are able to begin the aggressive testing and eliminate frontline staff as having it, and then more broadly into the community, and as well as the situation where we go 14 days and we get no positive tests.
Okay, in terms of when that plan gets to the point of rolling out, are there any considerations for, say, restrictions that may be implemented? For example, keeping the social distancing rules in place, maybe limiting the amount of people going into businesses, things like that, or have you gotten to that stage?
Yeah, so all of the above. And also the issue of wearing masks and so forth. We're considering all of these things, but because we have bought ourselves so much time, we are able to watch what's happening around the rest of the world, what works, what doesn't work, what is necessary, what isn't necessary. I see, and this is only my own view, I see what hear what I think are some very dangerous views being posited in the United States about reopening some states, and I'm waiting. I can't even look sometimes, but I'm waiting with bated breath to see how all of that transpires, because I think some of the things I'm hearing are going to result in, if they're implemented, are going to result in absolute disaster again. So, but because we are in this position, we are able to stand back and look at it and be able to assess what we think will work here and what won't.
Thank you, Premier. One final question. Parents keep sending these questions in, and we've seen from other countries, they've made the determination that school will not, they will not be reopening schools until September. Has that been part of your discussions as we move forward with our plans to deal with COVID-19?
Well, I haven't had that discussion, but that certainly is my view, looking at where we are in the school calendar now. And I should have made this announcement earlier, but this provides a perfect platform to do so. The Minister for Education has kindly agreed to join us by Zoom for tomorrow's press briefing. So she'll be able to answer those sorts of questions in greater detail.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Premier McLaughlin, a question from the public. Any update on where we're at with car inspections or the process for car inspections?
Yes, we have the legislation drafted, the draft legislation drafted, the bill, but we're still working to get a meeting of the Legislative Assembly arranged, and we'll need to have a cabinet meeting sometime during this week, probably Thursday or Friday, to hopefully approve the necessary bills to go there. There's also the amendments with respect to the pensions law, which will, and some amendments necessary with respect to the immigration law regarding making sure that people who have been unable to regularize their status here, I shouldn't use the word status, their immigration status here, not Kim Mannion status, immigration status here, that they won't be penalized as a result. So we're working on all of those things in the background and in between press briefings.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to our panelists. We have no further questions from members of the media today. Before we go, a reminder that if you have a complaint or you simply just need some information on employment and unemployment issues, you can go online to gov.ky/coronavirus. Also, if you'd like to deal with things like vehicle licensing or trade and business licensing or even police clearance records, you should go on eservices.gov.ky for more information there. Of course, I'd like to thank everyone who's made today possible, and we invite you to join us here back again tomorrow.
Blue serenity in yonder deep, the fear of death, but you pray, O Lord, for your soul to keep. Dear boredom, nothing but a selfish film over our eyes. Some people just don't get it. COVID-19 is a murderer, and your defiance reflects upon your character. Yes, I get it. Cabin fever is a breeding ground for depression, but I have a confession. Yes, you guessed it. We are in this together, and although our stories are not the same, they're similar enough to understand the pain. Read a book. Engage your mind. Don't give negativity the time to fester. Don't let it rule you so that K-Man too can see this through. Those beloved smiles that we shared with friends doesn't have to end, but you are consumed by what you do not have. When the health of K-Man is in your hands, there are many without work. They can't go to Kirk's in a panic, worry about organic. Premier says to live frugally so the repercussions don't hit so brutally. Read a book, they say. However, it is true. To discover something your mind never knew, educational absorbency in this time of uncertainty. Together, K-Man, together. Together, let's stay home, not just you alone. This is not a punishment, but a journey to success, to restore our faith in the human touch and the beauty of shared air. Together, we are a nation. Together, we are stronger.